All right, so how would you start number 1?
Okay.
You factor out a 2.
I did negative 8 and 2 times 2.
Hold on.
Basically, the vertex is that. Negative 3 over 2.
Yeah, we're graphing these. If it was set equal to 0 and we were solving, I'd say factor out a 2. We are graphing. So x equals negative b over 2a to find the x value of the vertex.
I did that, but I did 2 first. Factor out first.
So you will get the same graph, but yours will be like, yeah, not as stretched. Ours will have a vertical stretch because it's being multiplied by 2. So you will get a similar graph, but you will not get the correct one.
Wait, so it's not going to be the right answer?
You will not get the right answer, no.
Yes.
All right, so negative b, so negative 8 over 2 times 2. So that's 8 over 4. So 2 is the x value of our vertex. How do I find the y value of the vertex? Plug it back in. So y equals 2 times 2 squared minus 8 times 2 plus 2. So 8 minus 16.
Yeah, 8 minus 16 plus 2.
Okay.
Negative 8 plus 2 is negative 6.
Okay.
What?
Shh.
2, negative 6. Where do you start on this?
Okay. So my vertex is at the point 2, negative 6. So I'm going to go over to, yeah, it's kind of hard to tell which ones.
Well, where's the center? That's on center.
I'm going to just draw it on there for myself.
Perfect. That's where the center's at.
Okay. So go over to, whoops, and then go down 6. 1, 2. Now, there are some things we know right away looking at this. Which way is it going to open up? Up or down?
Up.
Yes. Look at A. If A is positive, this will be opening up. If A is negative, it's going to be opening down. We also have something called the axis of symmetry. That is the horizontal line the vertical line through the vertex. So the line x equals 2. So this guy right here. Yes, ma'am. So when we pick 2 spaces to the left, we're picking 1 and 0, okay? So I am going to plug in 1, see what I get for y, graph that and the symmetric point, okay? So this is going to be 2 times 1 squared minus 8 times 1 plus 2.
And then you get negative 4.
Yeah, and again, you square it, then you multiply it by the 2. Order of operations. Don't let the algebra...
You get positive.
Hold on 1 second. Okay, so if I go to graph 1, negative 4, I can also go to the right side of the axis of symmetry, and I have the point 3, negative 4.
Negative 4.
Okay, now you can go and plug 0 in. So y equals 2 times 0 squared minus 8 times 0. So 0 minus 0 plus 2.
Positive 2.
Good. So I'm at 0, 2. I'm also at 4, 2 because it's symmetric across that axis. So now I can fill it in.
That's a B.
And there's my parabola. You want yours to be a little more curvy, sorry.
That is not a parabola.
There you go.
It's a B.
All right, any questions?
No, ma'am.
And this is in what form? Standard form. If you want to write yourself a little note about, put like this is in standard form or here's standard form, depending on the form, is where you need to start in the process, okay? Standard form is the negative b over 2a to find the vertex. That's not how we're going to start number 2 because that's not the same form.
It's intercepts form.
How did you get the other?
Intercepts form. Chill out, everybody.
Hey, I'm just getting excited about math this month.
I like it. Let me make my graph a little more. Okay, so we are in intercepts form. What you get from intercepts form are the x-intercepts. This is where it's actually the opposite of what it says inside the parentheses. So if we have x minus 2, what's my intercept?
X plus 2.
Positive 2. If I have x plus 3, what's the intercept?
Negative 3.
Negative 3. So these are two spots on the x-axis. So you can go right 2, put a dot. You can go left 3, put a dot. Okay?
And what's in between?
Now, right in between them, we have what?
Negative 1/2 is the middle point.
Negative 1/2. And what do we call that special spot? The vertex. Okay? So when you average these two, right smack dab in the middle, that's your vertex. The x value of your vertex anyway. Okay? So this is going to be negative 1/2. And again, it's just right in the middle. If you don't want to even write this out, like put your finger on one, put your finger on the other, and count till you get to the middle, right? This one doesn't work out so nice and neat, but you can still see it, okay? So we're at the x value, negative 1/2.
Now plug it in.
Now plug it in to find the y value of your vertex. So that's negative 2.5.
So we going over this
And
again
positive
tomorrow?
2.5. I did negative 1/2 minus 2. They're both negative, so I added them and I kept the negative sign. And then negative 1/2 plus 3. It's like 3 minus 1/2, which is 2.5. All right. Did anyone multiply it out? What's negative? Negative 2.5 times 2.5.
Positive 2.5.
Right, it's going to end up being positive.
6 and 1/4.
6 1/4.
6 1/4.
So the vertex is kind of weird here, but it is at negative 1/2, 6 1/4. So go a little to the left, and then
Put it on 6. Because a dot overlaps with 6 and 1/4.
now we can double check to see if this makes sense, because here is my A. A is negative, so how should this be opening up? Down, which it is,
That's
right?
right.
So that's always a nice like pause. Did I do this right? You know, it's a good checkpoint. And again, if you want to make yourself a quick note, this is in intercepts form. I can't remember if they put P or Q first. It's pretty much interchangeable. Good, got it. All right, so that's how you graph in intercepts form. The other form that wasn't on here is vertex form. Vertex form, the vertex is written right in there. It's the negative HK one. Do you guys remember that one? Okay, and then you do the T-chart just like this. So I would still spend some time reviewing that. But again, this is just like a little sprinkling of each section to get us in gear for that test next week. Questions on 5.1?
Trophy.
This one says I can solve quadratic equations by factoring. So I heard someone actually say the zeros, we never did that. The zeros, the solutions, solving, that's all the same thing. Okay? You could call it the x-intercepts even. All right? So it's all the factoring and the setting each piece equal to 0, the zero product rule. Okay? So, number 3. How would you start that one? Hold on. Before you do bottoms up, you got to check for a GCF. So this one has a GCF of 2. So I'm going to divide everything by 2. So 2, and then open the parentheses. You get x squared minus 3x minus 10. Now, I noticed that some of you, when you were factoring out the GCF, you knew the process, but you were forgetting to write it in the front. Don't forget that, okay? That's important. Now we can do the MA for that trinomial inside the parentheses. So multiply to negative 10, add to negative 3. X minus 5 and x plus 2. For bottoms up, we go back and divide by the lead coefficient. What's in front of the x squared? What's in front of the x squared here?
2. 1.
Just a 1. You got to just look at the trinomial. We factored out that 2. That 2 is part of something else, okay? Now, to find the actual solutions, we set each of these equal to 0, and we solve for x. Normally, you would also set the GCF equal to 0. Does 2 ever equal 0?
No.
No, so we actually don't get an answer up there, but it's still important to look at. X minus 5 equals 0. So one of our solutions is x equals 5. The other one is negative 2.
Yeah.
Very good.
That's our answer.
That's our answer. So you could call those the solutions. You could also call them the zeros or the or the x-intercepts. All you'd have to do is replace that with a y. Okay? So if you think of it as a y and you're actually graphing it, those are the places where it touches the x-axis. If it's already set equal to 0, we typically don't really think of the graph, but you still can. Okay? And the reason I bring that up is on the next one, there's a y, and we're supposed to find the zeros. The zeros is the same thing as the x-intercepts. So you're going to take the y out, and you're just going to put a 0 in. Then you solve just like we did above. So just kind of a minor detail thing. Same process, though, the zero product rule. So the zeros is just what makes the y equal 0. Yes?
On the last one, why did the 2 go away?
I set it equal to 0 because of the zero product rule. I'm multiplying 3 things here. So one of them is going to be a 0. But 2 doesn't have a variable. So 2 never equals 0. So it didn't actually give me a solution. All right, back to number 4. Again, when you're finding the zeros or the x-intercepts, you are going to make the y equal to 0 and then solve. Some people also call it the roots of the quadratic. There's lots of different terminology. It basically just means set it equal to 0, solve using the zero product rule. Okay? So, does 3 ever equal 0? No. So again, we have a piece that's not going to give us a solution. X minus 7 equals 0. X plus 4 equals 0. So I'm going to add 7 to both sides. 7 is a solution. Subtract 4 from both sides. Negative 4 is a solution. What questions do you have? All right, so number 5 on the worksheet at section 5.3, it says I can solve a quadratic equation by finding the square root. So do you see how we have a binomial and it's squared? How do you undo squaring a whole side of an equation? You take the square root. Now, we got lucky because we have a perfect square of 36 on the right side. So I have 3a plus 1 equals, don't forget the plus or minus. Now, from here, you can either rewrite it with the plus or minus as you're doing the inverse operations, or you can write it separately. So 3a plus 1 either equals positive 6, or 3a plus 1 equals negative 6. Those are the two equations we need to solve to get our two solutions for this quadratic. Okay? So minus 1, 3a, whoops, I totally wrote the answer there instead of a 1. So 3a equals 5. And what's our first a?
5 over 3.
5 over 3, that's one solution. Good.
Negative 5 over 3.
Nope. You made me write 5 again. So 3a, yeah, you get negative 7. And then divide by 3, so a equals. Okay? Questions? So number 6, I can solve quadratic equations with complex solutions. So how would you start this one? Add 7. You want to get the x squared by itself. So we have negative x squared equals 25. Then what? Not yet. You got a negative. Yeah, you want to get the x.
I thought this was the one where you get the I.
Yeah, so you got to get the x squared part by itself before you take the square root. You'll still get I because this guy turns into a negative. So we have x squared equals negative 25. And then, yeah, you guys got it. This is where you get the I.
Is it negative 5i or 5i? 5i.
So it'd be just 5i. But it's plus or minus because we took the square root of both sides. So I'm going to write it out in 2 steps just so you can see where it comes from. This is what we would typically have, right? You take the square root of both sides, you introduce the plus or minus. We know the square root of 25 is 5, and the square root of negative 1 is I. So this is plus or minus 5i.
How do you simplify?
That's like a very general math question. Simplify what?
Number 7.
The next one. Okay, let's do it. So, your goal here, I can perform operations with complex numbers. Do you guys remember the trick to getting the I out of the bottom?
Nah. All you can do is negative 1 is I or something like that. You multiply by negative 1.
It's a trick. You multiply by the
inverse.
same thing, but with a different sign in the middle.
What?
Yeah.
We never even learned that.
We sure did. Okay. So, yes, it's called the conjugate. You want to multiply by the same binomial, change the sign. The reason this works is you end up with an I squared term and no I term in the middle. And then we know that I squared is negative 1. So that's the trick here. So we have to double distribute on the top.
You can split this up into like 2 quizzes, 2 tests. This is
I'm saying this is a
It's a lot. That's why we're slowing down. We're reviewing for like a whole
We
week.
should have done 2 different tests like you just said.
Okay, I will take that under advisement.
Oh, really?
No.
Wow.
So what do you get? 24i
Wait, can I square?
minus 35i plus 21i squared. All right, on the bottom you get 25. And then here's the magic, 15i plus 15i minus 9i squared. Now, do you remember what we do with the I squareds?
You multiply them by negative 1.
We make them negative 1. If you want to write that off to the side, I squared equals negative 1. Because it's the square root of negative 1 squared. So the whole trick is that you use the I squareds to get rid of your i's in your denominator. So up top we have negative 40, What do you get for your middle I terms? Minus 11I.
Minus 11I.
And then in the back, the I squared turns into negative 1.
Minus 21.
Wait.
So minus.
Hold on. We have a weight suggestion.
I don't know.
Oh, it's minus 21.
I'm lost.
Hold on. I don't know. Everyone's saying they're lost, but where?
Fine. Here, Thomas, you lost.
Looking. All right. So I am just. Did you get the double distribute?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. All I'm doing is combining the i's. So I still have the negative 40. 24i minus 35i is negative 11i.
12I.
And then in the back, 21i squared. Well, I squared is negative 1. So it's like 21 times negative 1.
Yeah.
So I made it a minus 21.
Okay, I'm caught up. Go.
All right, on the bottom, I have 25. The negative 15i plus 15i, that's gone.
So plus 0?
And then negative 9 times negative 1 because I squared is negative 1. So that's going to be plus 9.
And then what do you do?
Okay, now you just combine like terms again. So we have negative 40 and negative 21.
Oh, yeah. So it's negative, so it's negative 61.
So negative 61 minus 11i
Minus 11I.
all over
25 plus 9, what is that? 34.
34.
Now it's simplified.
That's as simple as this one's going to get. Not very simple.
Now I can get that to golf.